Well, today's guest is someone who embodies the soul of Wisconsin's land and spirit of conservation. Doug Duren is a passionate land steward, hunter, and conservationist rooted deeply in the Driftless region. He is the owner and manager of his family farm in Cazenovia, where his philosophy, "It's not ours, it's just our turn," guides his every action in restoring habitat, managing wildlife, partnerships with people, and mentoring others in land ethics. Doug is widely known through his work with the Meat Eater team, his appearances on national platforms like the Joe Rogan Experience, and his leadership in initiatives like Sharing the Land. This is a program that opens private land to public access through mutual respect and ownership. But beyond all of his titles and accolades, what stands out most for Doug is his deep reverence for nature and wildlife. Today, we are exploring a side of conservation that isn't often talked about, the therapeutic, healing, grounding power of being in the woods. We'll talk about emotional benefits of time spent out in nature, the unspoken wellness of hunting traditions, and how our modern culture, especially where it deals with youth sports, so we're taking a little different spin, might be pulling us away from something ancient and vital. Doug, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure and honor to have you with us.
Well, it's a pleasure and honor to be here, Gatlin. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you agreeing to come on and talk about some things that you are normally involved with in your regular day life, but maybe don't talk about other aspects of it and how it might tie into our mental health foundation.
Yeah, I was interested in, when you reached out to me about this, beyond just our friendship and everything, I was interested in the direction of the conversations that you're having. And, I get asked to be on a lot of different podcasts, and I'm happy to do them, but it generally is the same subjects all the time. And this is a completely different approach. And so I really appreciate it.
Oh, good. Thank you. First question, Doug, you spend countless hours in the woods and on your family farm. Do you ever find yourself reflecting on how that time impacts your emotional and mental well-being?
It's not countless hours. I keep track, but more than you might think someone like me would, I do actually stop and appreciate and sort of breathe out and breathe in. And some of it's subconsciously, but there's a very conscious part of me as well that knows and appreciates that time and that interaction and those efforts are they're just good for me,
How has that evolved over the years?
How far back do you want me to go?
Well, I mean, like as a kid or youth or teenager, 20s, 30s, did those thoughts cross
all the
your
way
mind?
back then is the answer. I have very fond memories of time outdoors when I was a kid. I don't really have memories of time indoors. You know what I mean? Those were my best memories are outside, and some of that had to do with sports, but a lot of it, even most of it, I would say, would be time that was spent on our farm. Some of it didn't seem that much fun at the time, like stacking hay in a hay mow and that kind of stuff. But now I'm like nostalgic for it, and you realize the values that you learn doing that. The value of hard work and really a group effort, and I don't know, the sense of accomplishment, and there was always a lot of it. Always seemed very fulfilling to do that kind of stuff, as you alluded to in the opening there, I'm kind of known for my work in conservation, and I didn't even know that was a word for a long time. It was just what we lived, right? Mm-hmm. And the time that I got to spend on the farm and in most importantly in the woods with my father and my grandfather, and learning about woodland conservation, but again, not the, just going out in the woods, and we got to cut, and just learn stuff from my dad and my grandpa. That's at this point, and even then, I guess, it's just reflecting on it and thinking back about it, that it just is a very settling place, in my head.
Yeah. And as a kid, or any kid for that matter, we're just having fun. We're just outside. We're playing. We're not thinking about, is this healing for me?
Right.
And then, I don't know, we get to a certain age maybe, and we find we have a problem in our life, and maybe we need something or some sort of therapy or treatment to treat a condition that we have. And then I think of people maybe that live in the city and don't have access to a whole lot of nature, and that do experience, going to a wilderness for the first time, and just feeling that, wow, this feels good.
Well, as a farm, growing up with a farm, and continuing with that, and and life goes on, and my wife is an avid gardener. We talk about this occasionally, about how having your hands in the dirt is like there's a connection there, and you want to call it therapy, I guess that's what it is, But those connections, I think, are so important. And you went back, to go back to reflecting on it. I'm as you're asking me that question, I'm thinking about the things that I'm doing on not only our property, but on some other people's properties, and the stuff that we're influencing. And a part of all of that is the setting, and that setting, that place where you're doing, that sense of place, is really, I think, setting settles, right? I mean, it sort of settles you. And I've spent so much time in particular places, but I know part of the reason I do that is because of the feeling that I have, and that the how it sort of grounds me and makes me a whole person.
Yeah. One of the points of this podcast is to, obviously we talk a lot about mental health because that's what our foundation is for. It's not always the topic of conversation, but today we're linking wilderness, nature, and hunting to well-being in a setting where it might not normally be talked about. And it's not that I think it should be, right? Even like you get all these people together, you want to have a conversation on how it's healing for them. No, you're just doing what you're doing.
It just is,
and it just is, and the benefits, the emotional well-being, whatever that takes place as a result, is just a side effect. So I just think that's cool, because we're identifying a way that what you're doing and sharing the land is awesome for the general public who don't normally have access to land. And also the benefits to the landowner. But really, at the end of the day, you're building community. Like the guy that's helped you with your technology said, Sharing the Land, the computer program, that app is kind of like a dating app or a matchmaker between land access seekers and landowners. But that community, that those friends that you build and those experiences that you have, that's what we all need at the human core. Is that community, that family, and those connections. And
that shared, that's one of the things in the outdoor space. If you hang out with people long enough, you're sharing experience, but you're also sharing things like joy and misery, and some of it physical, some of it mental. Hunting, brings that out as well, and it's the acknowledgement of it, and it's real. It's all that's I think more than anything is that time spent outdoors, whatever the activity might be. Foraging, something that I've been real interested in as of late. And boy, it is one of those things where the more you learn, the less you know. But that, I love that interaction with the land too, and you realize that you're feeling something a little bit different, but that is also something that, boy, when you get to share that with people, and there's just a quietness that sets over me when I do it, but when we go with other people and you're like digging ramps or looking for mushrooms or whatever, there's the aha when you find something, but there's also the sort of that quiet moving through the woods. Foraging and hunting are so different, but so closely related at the same time. And maybe that's a part of that feeling that we're touching on here.
Yeah, for sure. I'd love to hear you talk just a little bit more about Sharing the Land, because we touched on it. We kind of said the name, but just give us a summary on how that started, what it is, and what your current impact is, and what your future plans are for it.
Well, thanks. Yeah. So Sharing the Land is a initiative that was just sort of evolved out of a few different things, and because of the work that I've done with Steve Ranella and Meat Eater and on a national level, but more on a local and regional level, the work I've done with deer management and chronic wasting disease management and those things, a lot of opportunities sort of came together and things become obvious or show themselves to you, right? So 15, 16, maybe 17 years ago now, about the same time I met Steve Ranella at the first time, I was riding a bicycle through Riley, Wisconsin, and there's a tavern there. And the Riley Tavern, I think, is about all that Riley's known for, or at that time was the only thing that it was known for. And when I was riding through there with a friend, and there was this kiosk that was going up, and there's a thing about Aldo Leopold. So, of course, I pulled over and took a look at it. And having thought that I knew, like, all the important stuff that Aldo Leopold had done, talk about something that the more you learn, the less you know. Leopold was just such a wealth of knowledge and inspiration and a great teacher and thinker. And anyway, one of the things that he came up with was kind of by accident, right? And that is, he started a thing called the Riley Game Cooperative, and it was just really born out of looking for a place to go hunting. And he was driving around, this is in the 30s when he had first started at the university, and looking for a place to hunt, and he runs into this old dude who's washing his milk cans you can see the scene, right? He's washing his milk cans at the spring house, and Aldo asks him for a drink of water, breaks the ice, and then they start talking about birds. And Leopold was a avid bird hunter, pheasants being one of them, of course, but also quail and some of the other species that are a little more common south of us. Anyway, and he gets around to asking Paulson if he can hunt on his place. Can I hunt on your farm? And you can hear it, right? And Paulson said, I'd be cool with that, but there aren't many birds around, and because we got problem with poachers and different issues. And Leopold goes, hey, I can imagine saying this to a landowner if you're asking permission. Well, part of the problem is you don't have very good habitat. So they actually hit upon this idea that Leopold and his friends would come out and make some property improvements in exchange for the opportunity to hunt the property and access it. And it blew up this whole thing called the Riley Game Cooperative. And it's very much an example of conservation, cooperation, and community, as you're getting at. So I was losing hearing. Oh, there we go. I was kind of inspired by that and started reading about Riley, and there really wasn't that much about it. But over time, because of the connections, as I said, one of the things that became obvious to me is that if we were going to tackle some of the issues of conservation today, that some of what we could learn from the Riley Game Cooperative could be applied, and that is access to more people, education and implementation of conservation strategies, and the landowner being compensated. I mean, Leopold once said that conservation will ultimately come down to rewarding the private landowner for conserving the public's resources, which is, pretty forward thinking if you think about that in the 1930s. But and that it was, a longer term vision, right? So you had a longer term vision of everything, and everything's a process, a part of that process. So, some of the similar issues that we're having now is people want to get out and access property for foraging or hunting or camping or whatever. And when you're in an area like ours where 95% of the land is privately owned, at 5% of public might get kind of crowded. So how can we encourage that opportunity? Well, the land needs us. The land, ultimately, that's what this is, the land benefiting from it, and all of the members of the biotic community. So in sharing the land, it's a simple concept. It's the old barter system. You do something for me, well, not really. You're doing it for the land and the place where you're hunting or you're foraging or you're whatever, improving the place that you're interacting with. There's an old adage that hunting is conservation. That ain't necessarily so, but the hunting community likes that one because, well, we pay for everything, right? The licenses and all that. And we don't pay for everything, but there's definitely is a component to that, right? Like hunting licenses are sort of the varsity football team of the college, right? And they bring in a certain more money than it's being spent. Anyway, one rabbit hole after another here, but this idea that hunting is conservation has bothered me, but I wanted to. I've thought about that a little bit. And first and foremost, hunting is extraction, right? You're taking something from the land. What are you putting back into that land, or what are you doing for the place that you're doing that? So, one of the things that we've certainly learned in conservation and private land conservation is the better your habitat, the better your ecosystem, the more diverse population you're going to have of plants and animals. And the game species that you might be most interested in because you're a hunter are going to thrive in that environment as well. So, hunting is conservation. Well, that certainly can be the case, but if what you do is buy a hunting license and then expect to be able to go out and just kill something, take something from the land, it's a bigger experience than that. Mm-hmm. And there's part of where those healing qualities come in and all of that as well. When you are a part of that ecosystem, a part of that biotic community, both as someone who's inputting and then, outputting, kind of living with the land, taking what the land is offering, and doing the best you can, to preserve the integrity, beauty, and the integrity and beauty, really, of the biotic community, like Leopold talked about. That's what we're doing with sharing land. I just made it sound really complicated, but essentially it's a barter system. We match landowners with access seekers who are willing to come out and do some work on a property in exchange for whatever access that happens to be that the landowner is willing to give up. So, do an exchange. And what we've found is that, like the old school hunting camps and that kind of thing, community evolves or emerges from that, and it's based on conservation, cooperation, camaraderie. We got any other C's we can think of there?
So did the Riley Game Cooperative just sort of fizzle out when Aldo Leopold got old?
Well, he died. And, he had a heart attack fighting a fire on a neighbor's property, ironically enough.
How old was he?
Younger than me, 58, I believe.
I didn't know that. Yeah. So did he, or did the Riley Game Cooperative just fizzle out over time, or doesn't still exist?
No, it doesn't still exist. It continued. I mean, he died in 48, and it continued into the 50s, and then did kind of fizzle out. And I guess if you got someone like Aldo Leopold at the helm of something like that, you could see where that would be problematic, but it was an experiment. It wasn't a long-term intentional. We're setting this up to do this way.
Sharing the land.
The Riley Game Cooperative.
Okay.
Sharing land. We're taking that idea and setting it up so that it's not dependent on a person. I mean, I might be the whatever it is that I am, the founder and
early spearhead of it. But
yeah, thanks. That's a good way of putting it. It's always weird to describe yourself, but the idea is that these are ideas that are going to continue over time. So we were in the process of establishing a 501c, 501c3. I'm still having trouble with this thing going on and on, but
it's just your monitor. It's not the microphone, so
you're hearing everything fine.
It's recording everything. It's just your headphones are glitching out because it's an old cord or something.
Yeah. That's all right. I mean, it seems fine when I don't move around too much.
Easy to.
I just like the sound of the sound of voice is really good in my ears.
So tell us, how many states are you in? How many landowners do you have signed up? How many land access seekers do you have? And I know you have a bunch in the pipeline too.
So yeah, we started this thing really 3 years ago in our third year, and now we have landowners in 14 states. There's over 40 properties. I think it's 43 at this point. 14 states, and we have over 15 conservation resumes, or 1,500, I should say, conservation resumes, which is the part that the access seeker fills out. So if you're interested in sharing land, what you do is go on to sharingland.com, and you will see there's a input portal for landowners and one for access seekers. And the access seeker fills out a conservation resume, and like any resume, it's something that can be built upon, right? So, and that you in there, you're telling about yourself and where you're from and what you're interested in and what you know and what you know and what you don't know. And it's just fine to say I'm a novice hunter. I don't even know what conservation means, because we have landowners who are interested in that kind of person, as opposed to the landowners like, I want an expert burn boss so that I can come out and burn my prairies, because we have some of that too. And that's kind of the cool thing about it, right? That community sort of evolves based on landowners. We have one landowner, he's like, I want nothing but new hunters and their family. And he's been a hunter and instructor for a long time, and he just sees this as this great pipeline to be able to bring people in, so it'll be like a father-son, mother-son, whatever, and they go through the whole process together. He prefers it to be a parent who hasn't hunted also, so that they're learning it together. And he's vast experience doing that kind of stuff. Really interesting cat. He's over by Richland Center. Guy I really admire and respect greatly. But to literally people like a friend of mine who has rewarded people for cleaning up a public trout stream with access for turkey hunting in the late seasons on his properties. Like, ran into these guys taking like tires and shit out of the trout stream, and what are you guys doing? They said, well, we're out here turkey hunting, and things are a little slow, so we thought we'd come over here, maybe try a little trout fishing. We saw this stuff, we decided to get it out. And my buddy says to him, well, where are you hunting? And they said, well, right here in the public land, but it's getting beat pretty hard. He goes, I got 200 acres up the road here, a couple miles. You're welcome to come up and. So he was rewarding them for their conservation action. And that's really what this is, right? It's not like, oh, you got to do this for me. The barter isn't really with the landowner as much as it is with the land and the species that you're pursuing.
Right. The landowner doesn't own the deer.
Yeah.
Or the trail.
Yeah. Well, it's not ours. It's just our turn. That's, I think any of it, if we can think about things like that versus, I can't remember which robber baron it was back in the early 1900s who said that the future can damn well take care of itself, different mentality than that. And I think a more appropriate one, if we are really thinking about everything from the future to how we benefit from this now, to go back to the healing idea, I think one of the greatest parts of this is that and I think this is hunting and spending any time in nature at all. You can do it as a group, as a community, as a, cooperating thing, but also impact on you as an individual. Some people like to do things in a solitary way. Others, prefer in a group. Or like we do with some of our hunting camps is that we're all out hunting by ourselves and then we come back in and that's where all the stories, you hear everybody's story and it's, laughing and joking and reveling in that experience.
Mm-hmm. I think what's so cool is you're given opportunities for people to access land, to experience hunting. A lot of novice hunters too. So learning everything that there is to know about shooting a gun, harvesting a deer, and the art of hunting and all that. But here, like at the foundation, we talk a lot about silence of the mind, calm of the mind, and just peace of mind, right? Because this monkey mind can go crazy and not stop thinking and scrolling and all that stuff. So what role does just sitting in a stand, even if you're in a group, right, you're not going to be talking the whole time if you're hunting for whitetails, if you're not in an enclosure. So there's a silence there. And I just think of people that maybe haven't experienced hunting or silence or solitude that much in their life. And for the first time, just sitting in nature, sometimes when you're hunting, if you get out there at 5 o'clock in the morning and you wait 1 hour before the sun comes up, and it's a lot of silence, right? It's a lot of just quiet, especially in the winter, like opening of gun, there's no birds singing. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you can hear the snow fall, which is incredible. So I don't know what my question is. Is there a ritual that you do with hunting?
Huh.
Or is hunting a ritual itself?
Yeah, I think for me, hunting is a ritual itself. The getting ready, the making sure you have what you need, and then the getting out there, decisions about where am I going to go and what am I going to do, and some of that, and how that varies so much, right? How you interact as you hunt. Here's a funny example, but maybe gives you a little insight into the way I think about this. I just got a dog 3 months ago, and he's a hunting club washout. He wasn't good enough for, he's a very well-bred Labrador Retriever, but he just doesn't have the attitude, right? He's soft and not driven enough is how it was put to me. I'm like, oh, okay. Give me an example. And the guy's like, okay, so he hunts he's got a great nose. He hunts really good. But if you're out hunting with him individually, he'll do really well for you. But if he hunts with a group, he's cool with the other dogs bring the bird back. Or when it's time to flush, he won't be the most aggressive one as a flush. And we like that to be,
they want competitive dogs.
Yeah, they want competitive dogs. And he's just not. I mean, he's very, I wouldn't call him submissive necessarily, but he definitely just likes being a part of the pack, as opposed to the leader of the pack.
Yeah.
But the thing that really sold me on getting this dog is that the guy said, so here's an example. I take him out hunting by myself and he hunts really good. And then all of a sudden the butterfly will fly off and he'll chase the butterfly. I was like, that sounds like the dog for me, man. Cause I am not so driven. And maybe I was certainly more driven as a younger man to the harvest was important and what you killed and, and it was antlers and all that other stuff.
Yeah.
But with the walking and the time spent and the being distracted, but at the same time, that distraction comes as a result of, like you were saying, it being quiet. Like one of my favorite ways to hunt is to move slowly through the woods. And then you just, for whatever reason, I'm going to stop here and not sit down, but lean into a tree and just kind of hang and see what happens, and everything from leaves falling to squirrels going across the ground to the sound of that could be a deer or whatever, or turkey or whatever it is that you're hunting. And then just observing what's on the floor and what's growing on the side of trees and all of that kind of stuff. And I literally have moments when I'm out there when I'm kind of, all of that's going through my head and what did I come out here for again? Am I out here turkey? Oh yeah, turkey hunting, right? Because all the rest of it is sort of, that's healing. I mean, not that I necessarily need to be, it's soothing, I guess is what I would call it.
Therapeutic.
It's therapeutic. There's the word. Oh yeah, therapeutic.
Yeah. Yeah. In our world, the word healing is used a lot, and I don't and sometimes I use it, but I don't necessarily love it because it implies that you're broken.
Yeah, there's something.
And
Yeah,
like
I got a scar.
We're all just evolving people, right?
Yeah.
And speaking of evolution of the hunter, I think about sometimes, and I've seen this, like the stages of the hunter.
Yeah.
Just a concept proposed before, but like someone could start hunting, and when say maybe you're young and you didn't have a teacher, or you didn't have a very good teacher, and maybe you just buy a license, you go out into public land, you shoot a deer, you leave a candy bar wrapper in the woods, and there's no thought, you drag it out and you harvest it, got my meat, did the job. But then over time, maybe there's something that time in the woods has taught you, or something, or your community has taught you, and it's not so much about the big rack. You realize how many times have you heard, hunting camps, it's more about the camaraderie than it is the hunt.
Yeah.
But
until it comes, that big some bitch comes through the woods at you, then all of a sudden it's about him, and that's okay too.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, anyone that hunts is going to love the opportunity to harvest a trophy.
Yeah.
But over time, it seems to evolve. And personally, myself, last year I just put up a nice stand for the first time, a comfy stand where I can have a heater. And I went out there, and I'd never been an avid bow hunter, but I do have a crossbow. I'm not practiced enough with my compound to be confident.
You don't need to justify any of that to me, man. Or even explain it. I think that you're going out there with a very efficient weapon.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's a great, and I love that analysis from people. I just, it's interesting for me to hear you say that, because I don't have and I get it. And I'm the same way. I've got a crossbow, but I don't even go. I have other people hunting, and it's fine because I've done enough of it. But good for you for using the efficient weapon.
My point for saying that was that I have meat in my freezer right now. I don't need to go harvest a deer, but I started bow hunting because, number one, I had a really comfy stand that I could spend a significant amount of time in, and the bow season is typically more comfortable weather. And the things you see just when you're hunting, I leave my crossbow in my stand, and it's not cocked, and it's an older 10-point that makes a clicking noise when I wind it up, fairly loud clicking noise. And I found myself
like you're really reeling in a boat or something on a click.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm like, at first I thought, I'm not going to get out to my stand and make a bunch of noise cocking my crossbow. I'm like, I also can't wait if a big buck walks by. I'm not going to cock the loud crossbow and then shoot it. I ended up going out probably 20 times, and I never once cocked my crossbow because I knew why I was out there. It wasn't for meat, but it was for. And it took me a while before I told Sasha I wasn't even cocking my crossbow.
Yeah.
She'd be like, you're not hunting. You're just enjoying
hanging out in the woods.
Like it's my wildlife observation tower.
Yeah.
And I love hunting with my kids because they love it. And the one just wants to harvest and the other one's waiting for big horns. So it's fun to see they're different. What drives a person to get out there to begin with, how it changes over time.
It's interesting that you bring that up about your kids, because man, there's nothing like kids to help you re-see the world or see you through younger eyes or whatever. It's, I think, funny story. My daughter Eleanor hunts, but she didn't start shooting until she was in college, but she went hunting with me a lot. She just wanted to go and do what Dad was doing, right? So even when she was little and we weren't hunting, we would walk in the woods, and I'd say, we're going to go up to Grandpa and Grandma's house this weekend. And she'd go and walk in the woods. She loved to walk in the woods. She learned to identify trees the same way I did. That's a oak or a white oak. And, why? Well, it's because it is, right? That kind of stuff. And you learn after a while. But so then she's like, yeah, man, I want to, Dad, I'd like to go hunting with you. So deer hunting. I was all right. So we go out, and I consciously don't put bullets in the gun. And we go up along this thing. We sit down on the end of I didn't put a magazine in. There's nothing. I'm carrying it. But and we're sitting on the edge of this ridge, and just sitting there, and I just told her, well, we just sit here and see what happens. And she's like, oh, okay, well, keep your eyes and ears perked, and here's a bunch of deer come across the side of the hill. And I mean, they were close enough to shoot, and they came down through the bottom, and they got a little closer to shoot, and And I said, well, she goes, are you shoot? I was like, yeah, they're moving. And I mean, I had every excuse in the book not to shoot one of them. And so we went through it all, and I kind of explained, I didn't feel right about the shot or the opportunity or whatever. And as we're walking out, she's like 10 or 11 at the time, and we're walking out, and I said, well, would you want to do this again? And she said, yeah, but next time put bullets in the gun. Like she knew from the beginning.
Oh, yeah, she did.
Yeah, but then by the time she was in high school, she was going with me, and not necessarily like an opening day or anything, but we would walk, and I've got trail camera footage. This is hilarious of, the trail camera goes off and it's video, and I'm walking real slow, and I'm taking this step, and here she is behind me doing exactly the same thing. And there's like 30 seconds of video like that, and it's dear to me. And so it wasn't until she was in college. She's at DePaul University in Chicago. She's in a sorority, and she comes home and says, hey, I want to go hunting with you. I was like, great. Yeah, we'll go out. And she goes, but you can be my mentor. I can be your mentee. I would like to shoot. I'm like, oh, okay. Now she had been shooting 22s and stuff like that. So I said, well, let's, I have a correct lighter caliber 6.5 Creedmoor, it's called, and it perfectly fit her. And so she started shooting that a little bit, and we agreed that she could shoot out to about 100 yards. Well, 6.5 Creedmoor, you can shoot 500 yards, but wouldn't do that, right? Well, I'm going to shoot this far. Well, we went out, and it's a wonderful experience that we shared, and she ended up killing this little buck that ran into the woods, and we didn't have any of hit it in the spine, and it lay there and twitched or anything. It ran into the woods and died, and she went through all the emotional part of it. She ended up taking meat from that deer back to her sorority sisters and making venison for them. And I got the little skull with the antlers on it cleaned up for her, and her experience with that has really followed her. I mean, she's very cosmopolitan. She would laugh to hear me say that, but it's true. I mean, she's very, she traveled extensively. They're actually moving overseas in a couple of months. Her boyfriend, now fiance, never hunted, never shot a gun. Guess what he does now, So and that's a shared experience, and the kind of thing that they both see the connection in doing it. He likes shooting. So we'll do clay pigeons and stuff like that. He likes that kind of shooting, but that, I connected with my dad, over hunting and that kind of stuff. And in times when I hated my dad and he hated me, I'm sure, that was still something that we had in common. So we always kept that connection. And even now thinking, he's been gone for almost 10 years now. And those are some of the best moments and some of the best lessons, and that's therapeutic also.
Yeah, absolutely. It's
that was a long valley I went down there.
I've mentioned this at the Tin Man opener speech 2 years ago, because it just sort of dawned on me one day, and I think it was probably when I was hunting. The avid hunters are some of the calmest, what seems to be emotionally intelligent people I know, and that's what made the link for me. And don't get me wrong, there are exceptions to the rule, like any other group, but I think of people who are especially bow hunters, those crazy bow hunters that are constantly in the woods.
I'm going to disagree with you so much on this.
I think they're usually pretty cool dudes, especially if they've been doing it for a long time. Now the gung-ho newbies, that's a different story.
Well,
it's more about the gear and the horns.
There's so much of what you're saying is true, But I think it comes down to on a more individual basis, and I honestly think that some of the ills of a big part of the ills of whitetail whitetail conservation in this state are a result of, sorry folks, but bow hunting and bow hunters and what it did to management or lack thereof. But I don't disagree that some of the most accomplished hunters that I know, and people who are pretty good woods people and kind of understand what it is, are in the bow hunting community.
So you're saying what you've seen is like you've witnessed just a large number of bow hunters who have sort of bastardized the system, the hunting conservation world.
And I didn't really want to go down this road, but that it. This is a problem that we have in hunting right now, and that is people are much more concerned about their individual experience than they are about the conservation and the health of the species. Southwest Wisconsin especially, and we quit managing deer effectively and the disease effectively because the outcry, a lot of it from the bow hunting community, because of the amount of gun hunting that was being allowed. And what difference does it make? 95% of the land is private land. If you don't want to gun hunt on your property, then don't. But why should I, as a landowner who wants to do more about taking more deer off of the landscape, well within the quota system that the DNR set up, and we never hit what they would like to. I mean, we just don't.
Yeah, so many.
But there was a longer season, a thing called earn a buck. A longer gun hunting season. Earn a buck killed took a lot of deer off the landscape, killed a lot of deer. But it also, the extension of the gun seasons bled into some of the bow hunting stuff. And the bow hunters are like, I mean, I literally have had bow hunters say, well, I don't want to hear guns off there, going off when I'm out there bow hunting. I'm like, but you're going to tell me if you're hunting next door to me that I can't go out and target shoot? And they're like, well, no, I don't mean it like that. I mean, shooting at deer. And he's like, what, do you know the difference between what a target shot is and what a deer shot is? And what do you, it made no sense to me. Wanting to restrict hunting, what I do on my property, this is the libertarian part of me, restricting what I do on my property for what they want to do on their property. Well, fine, you do whatever the hell you want over there. If you don't want people to gun hunt, then don't. I can't believe I'm going down this rabbit hole, but, I think it's interesting. I think what you're getting at with bow hunters, I think can be true, that people do spend a certain amount of time in the woods. They're also there, as you said, in the best weather time, right? So why am I? Because I'm not a bow hunter. Well, why don't you take up bow hunting to do that? Well, because I'm the efficacy of the weapon, vertical, traditional bow, great. You want to hunt with that? Great. But the efficacy of that versus a compound bow versus a crossbow versus a rifle, if we're going to, I was going to say ethically, but the most effective way of harvesting a deer is with a rifle, period.
Yeah, it's your best chance of making a clean kill.
Well, that's exactly right. And so when you take that into the consideration of it, but then from the conservation standpoint and the deer management standpoint, it all got skewed, and now we've got this huge mess. And so I don't think that alters in the least the fact that I would agree with you about bow hunters who spend a lot of time doing it, and the time that they spend out there, they are looking for a particular thing. But then my question for those kind of folks is, are you doing the work of management after that? Mm-hmm. If you're out there hunting one big giant buck with your bow, are you then shooting 6 does during the gun season?
Yeah.
That kind of thing. And those are the things that I challenge people about. Well, but that's different. That's, I think, part of the interaction with the outdoors and the therapy of it, if you will, is doing the right thing. And not managing deer is not doing the right thing. I mean, it's destroying our biotic community. Whitetail deer are the hardest thing on our biotic community around here.
I just think a lot of us don't think about it. I didn't have, I hunted with my dad. I grew up learning how to hunt from my dad and then my stepdad, and learned more about conservation as I got older, but I had never thought twice about, giving back. It's just about what are you going to go harvest? So I think that's one of the coolest things you're doing with Sharing the Land is showing that.
Well, that's what we were talking about, sharing the land.
You got to give back, right? Because we're taking. It's not all about the take. It's a give and take. It's a this. It's like you go back and forth. One hand washes the other. So
when I first started this idea that I would invite people that I didn't know necessarily to the farm. How do you break that down? How do you decide? And when I first did it on social media and said, I would be interested in having 8 turkey hunters come to my place. Here's how I'm going to break it out so we can do that. And is there a willingness to help me with a project before you do it? And of course, oh yeah, I'd be happy to do that. But my question ends up being to people, not novices, because that's an important component of all this, right? But that's not. If new hunters are a small percentage of the hunting public, but my question is, and it's to everybody really, what's your contribution to conservation? Because it's a question I ask myself all the time. How does this hold up against my mantra? It's not ours, it's just our turn. Is this like that or not like that? Rather, and so if you have something like a conservation philosophy that you can hold stuff up against, right? Am I doing this? Is this good for the entire biotic community? Is this following the ethic, the land ethic?
Yeah.
So those are the things that I think about in all of it. Yeah. But I'm sitting here talking with you about it. There's, it's philosophy, right? So that's a part of the whole process as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Just making sure that it's balanced in a sustainable model that you're building.
Yeah.
Which it sure seems to be.
It's worth checking out. And as we were talking about earlier, it's evolves, right? I think one of the mistakes that we're making in the modern world is feeling like, because we have so much information at our fingertips, that somehow I'm now an expert about that particular thing. And that we're making the mistake of being so damn sure, right? What's that old saying about, it's not the things that you're unsure about that are the problem. It's the ones that you think you know absolutely that's the problem. Mm-hmm. Having that, I guess this is all part of it, as my dad used to say, having the, this is a hard thing, man. And I try to do this and I think I fail at it, but I'm trying to do this, like reserving the right to change my mind, and also being open to, other ideas, or the idea of meeting people where they're at. Well, why do you think that way? Not like, why do you think that way? But
keeping an open mind.
Yeah. Explain that to me. Explain that position to me. Where does that come from? And it's disarming to a lot of people, but it's also, it's also a fair question. Well, it's just what I think. I'm sorry, it doesn't count. We can't, that's not intellectually or whatever, honest. If it's just what you think, then explain to me why you think that way.
Yeah. And a hardline belief.
Yeah. Anyway, philosophy.
So you think there's, are there more kids nowadays playing sports or hunting?
Oh, I'm hands down, there's more kids playing sports. I couldn't list a dozen kids that hunt. Younger kids, like I guess if I started to think about it, but everybody's playing sports. But I don't think that's unusual either.
No, you grew up playing a lot of sports.
Oh yeah.
And your daughter?
She did. Depends on what you call it. She did like more lifelong sports like running and horseback riding. And she loves going to the gym and doing stuff like that. But that was a part of the physical education program that she went through at Madison West High School, or the whole Madison West district, where it wasn't about whatever season sport that was, right? Which is the way it was when I was a kid. Gym class was playing softball, football, bombardment, and whatever. Whereas she comes home and like explaining all this different stuff they're doing, I was like, holy crap, physical education is actually a physical education class,
Yeah. Well, it's so important. Movement to the body, right?
Yeah.
What do you think about youth sports nowadays? Are they, I know there's a lot of travel leagues and there's a lot of access to it. And personally being a baseball dad of 6 boys, I've witnessed it. I've I've seen the good and the bad and the ugly.
You get a little bit of that in yourself too.
Of that, I wouldn't be able to see it.
Yeah, it's funny. You know, I played sports in high school and stuff, and then I went to college and played basketball, and then I became a high school varsity basketball coach and varsity softball coach.
That's right.
And one of the things that I realized, I mean, and then when I quit doing that, when I was no longer teaching and coaching, I not interested in it at all from like my own standpoint, you know, like, oh, I'm going to keep playing in the over 40 league or whatever. You know, I never, the participation wasn't important to me. What was the question again?
This is my opinion. Baseball in particular, my experience, and I know it's also similar with hockey and soccer or whatever other sports there are. These travel leagues.
Oh, time spent.
Time spent and like the weekends in the summer that can be completely sucked into that particular sport. And it's just, some people just go absolutely bonkers over it and it becomes their life. And I'm not judging them for it. But what I'm thinking about, is
messed up.
Is the mental health impact on our youth with this excessive competition. And when they get to a certain age, there's or certain programs or leagues, they're like, okay, your kid might not play. And I don't know. I just think about that a lot with kids that are pushed into that, whether they want to be there or whether their parents want them to be there. And
so young, that's the other part of it, right? I mean, I don't know what your experience was, but mine was, we did a lot. We just played a lot. You know, and it's like we figured out the rules of baseball and stuff because we didn't have umpires and stuff. We were just going over the park and playing.
It's Sandlot Club.
Yeah, you know, I mean, it's that kind of stuff as opposed to everybody's got a uniform and it's all this thing and, you know, we're going to.
Yeah.
And I think as long as you are, it's balance, right? As long as you are balancing that with everything and it doesn't become this obsession, I think that's fine. But I think you're right. I think there's parents, it's, I've seen it. I mean, one of my groups is one of my other things other than the conservation stuff is athletic field construction and management. So one of my clients, my biggest clients, is the Madison Area Youth Soccer Association, and particularly Redden Soccer Park, which is 16 fields, and they host big tournaments, and there's stuff going on there all the time. I've spent countless hours there over the last 20, 25 years that I've been involved with it. It's been more than 20, not quite 25. Anyway, and I've seen it, you know, like the joy and the fun and all of that how can we take this sport that is the simplest thing in the world? I mean, I've been in third world countries where kids are playing soccer with a ball with tape on it and they got their goal isn't much and they're
no net.
No net, no nothing. They're incredible. So I'm playing on gravel and stuff, incredible soccer players. But we bring it to America, and now everybody's got to have this uniform. You got to pay this money to go and be in this part of this particular team where you're going to get trained in a particular way. And then you go to the events, and the parents are all wearing the long coats with the. It's like, okay, we turned it into a. I agree 100% that they're working harder to have those kids be better at it, but does that mean that it's more enjoyable? And I mean, what's the end game there? You're going to have one in 500 kids continue on to whatever level. So if there's a healthy balance in there, I think it's okay, but I've seen a lot of unhealthy stuff too. My kid didn't, she went to horse camp. You know, like in the summer and stuff. She just wasn't that interested in it. It was much to her dad's chagrin because she's almost 6 feet tall and she's coordinated and she could have been a hell of a basketball player. She just wasn't that interested in basketball. She was interested in volleyball and then she wrecked her ankle and she's like,
Yeah.
So, but I have seen it and from a removed level also, but then also someone I was a coach. It was a big deal at the school where I was teaching. You know, this community gets so wrapped up in all of that stuff. And so it really is, well, what's the healthy part of that community? Just like with any of these things, it can become unhealthy, right? Like deer management, cult kind of big giant buck mentality. And if you shoot one that's too small, you're going to be fined. And sucking the joy out of it, right? And I was doing it. I was guilty of it myself with some of the stuff that we were doing. I'm like, whoa, I don't want to do that. And then involvement became so important to me. And this isn't like some altruistic thing. I needed to kill more deer, and I killed a bunch of deer myself. And then I got 7 deer laying there. I'm gutting them out. I'm like, what the heck am I doing? This is a job, and I don't want, and I was exterminating deer. Well, what I ended up doing with how Sharing the Land evolved with that was started bringing people in to share that experience with them, that they killed the deer, and they went, and I helped them through that process, right? So there was something healthy coming out of it on the other end, just like with sports. There's some adult leagues in that come out to the soccer thing, and you watch, those guys are having a blast. And they're mixed, and then he's got to be, I shouldn't say always going to be, but there's often is that one guy who's like still taking out something that he got wronged by a referee when he was in. You've seen it, man.
Oh, yeah.
And that's the stuff that's like, I guess it's therapeutic for them, but it's also, and then there's got to be rules involved, and people are going to know you're banned. I've seen all that stuff happen. I just hope that other people are learning from that and reflecting on that, going, I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be the parent who embarrasses my kid. You see the videos of the stuff that people do, but it's not, we don't throw that. Let's not throw that baby out with the bathwater, right? Let's make sure that the joy and the importance, and you can invest money in it. What the hell? They're paying me to make sure these fields are as good as they can be. So there's a living in it. And I see the value of sports and the camaraderie and the team building and and all of that. But that's all of life, right? We're just kind of all beating
it's evolved. It's evolved a lot, especially baseball, with the extent of the travel seasons and the number of seasons that a kid can play. But
and then is there an expectation that they're going to commit to that kind of thing then too?
I don't know. And I wonder, how much of it is parents that want the kid to be there and the kid that wants to be there. But anyway, my point is it's evolved to be more travel leagues, more you got to get a hotel because the tournament is 3 hours away or farther. And it's become very excessive, very, the opportunities are there to play as much baseball as you want. But then I think about my son, Jack, who just graduated. He played basketball for the high school a couple of years, but last year, him and 6 of his buddies who liked to play basketball but weren't on the basketball team would go like once or twice a week to the local gym just to play basketball.
Just to play.
And it's like, man, that is pure right there. And I just hope that maybe the evolution will shift more to that someday, like local play, local league, enjoy it, have fun. But I don't know if it will.
I think we all go through it's ongoing change and reflectiveness. We do that as individuals. My nephew is a great example. Sam's now 32, got a 2-year-old boy. He was a great pitcher and played for the Madison Mallards and came out of a Division III school, got signed by them for a 10-day contract. And the next thing you know, he plays for them for a whole year. And the next year they bring him back to play for the whole year. And he ends up messing up his shoulder. He misses the draft. He gets, he was committed to it for a certain period of time. And then, he had to have surgery. He went through all this stuff. And then at some point it's like, didn't work out. He still plays baseball on Sundays with his friends in Sister Bay. They have a great team. They have such a great time. And you go there and there's their parents and their kids and all of that kind of stuff going on. And the focus is correct. Sure, you play for real. This isn't, when you're playing a game like that, it's not like you're out there fooling around. You're out there doing the best you can with what you got, right? And you're being competitive, and it's all of that. But it's also a matter of perspective and keeping all of the things in perspective.
Yeah.
Is this what we wanted to talk about?
Well, I don't know. I did want to just touch on that a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting thing, especially the point where you're at with your kids. And I followed your son a little bit, and I was like, damn, kid, play. And, but then how do you want to be fully supportive and fully behind but you want to make sure it's their dream and your interest, and you can share that, and it can be a shared thing too. It's
Oh yeah, unstructured play is just natural, right? And I just think that there might be some youth that are missing out on quieter, more grounding experiences like hunting, and just because of the imbalance.
Yeah.
How many youth are involved in your Sharing the Land? Is it mostly
We don't
adult?
focus on youth.
Yeah.
So
But-
I am working with the National Deer Association and my friend Brock Rosenkrantz, who is the National Deer Association Field to Fork Coordinator, which is a Learn to Hunt program. He too focuses mostly on what we call them now, like emerging hunters or adult onset hunters or that kind of stuff. But folks who are, it's like didn't have the opportunity, weren't exposed to it, didn't have the access to it. Focus on that a little bit more. But then, like I said, there's the one guy by Richland Center. He totally wants parents with a kid so that they're having that experience. And then there are other components of like the Learn to Hunt programs that focus almost exclusively on kids.
Sure.
It's a really interesting thing. I mean, if folks are interested in it, you go to the Wisconsin DNR Learn to Hunt programs, the R3, recruit, reactivate, and retain. Lots of opportunity, and it's kind of cool because the funding is available and it shouldn't go away. It's available, or not oddly, I guess, appropriately maybe. The result of funding from the Pittman-Robertson Act, which is a excise tax on shooting sports equipment, and that goes towards promoting shooting sports, but also promoting hunting and doing it in a sound way.
For youth and adults.
For youth and adults, and it just depends on what the focus, what each group's focus is. And that's not to say that we don't, that I, like on my place, I don't really focus on kids, but I'm trying to think about the last, how many have been out there too, because they came with their dad or their mom, or they've come to like the events that we've had. And we've done some, a little bit of hunting with younger kids too. I learned hunts with them. So, what's with all of it, with Sharing the Land and with opportunity, I think it's important to acknowledge and to think about that there are people who have plenty of opportunity dad hunts. I mean, it's how I got into it, right? I mean, it was just natural as falling off a log, it's what we did, as opposed to an urban kid whose interest is piqued by seeing Steve Rinella on Meat Eater. It's like, well, how do they get involved? That's a much tougher row to hoe and so that's what's so great about these programs, and that they're funded, is that there are those opportunities. And then the next step is, okay, now you got them on the bus and they're doing this. Where are they going to go hunting? Well, yeah, there's public land and there's all of that, but private land opportunity is really important. And then there's that education component, right?
And they need a mentor.
And a mentor, yeah. Somebody, the Learn to Hunt, the R3 people talk about the two biggest impediments to new hunters are a place to go and someone to go with. And so if the R3 movement, recruit, retain, reactivate, we're with Sharing the Land really much more concerned about retaining hunters and reactivating versus recruiting hunters, because there's plenty of opportunity for that. But it really is, how do you keep someone involved with something, as opposed to, we're going to take somebody out hunting and then go, see, that's what it's like. And that can be beneficial because they're like, I support hunting because I get it, even though I'm not going to continue to do it. And I see where conservation is important if that was a part of the education that they had to go through to have that experience, or even if they're out there. So it's, exposure is one thing, and then opportunity for continuing is the other.
So in closing, Doug, what do you want to tell the listeners? What's the best advice for someone who is looking to get into hunting and does not know where to start?
Well, the wonder of the interweb. So the R3 movement, recruit, retain, reactivate, is a great place to start. If you're here in Wisconsin, go on to the Wisconsin DNR's Learn to Hunt pages, and you can just start looking there. Because there is a lot of opportunity. Pheasants Forever has a program, great program. National Deer Association has a program. Mentored Outdoors is another one, and I think that's more youth related. There's like 4 different groups in the state that are doing that, and that they have funding available to do it. And people are so the opportunity is there, and that is where I would begin. And don't get caught up in a couple of things like having to go out and kill something, because then you're just killing stuff, right? I mean, that's going to come. It's going to happen. And I would suggest that anybody who is interested in getting involved with hunting and they've not just gone out before, see if you can find someone that you can tag along with. My guess is that's probably how you started, because it was how I started too with my dad. It's like, oh, yeah, he's going to go squirrel hunting. And I'm like, as long as I could keep up and shut up, I could go along. And that was kind of how we got introduced to it in the same way, and so being exposed to it first before, as opposed to having your 5-year-old ready to kill something, I just don't, at some point there comes a point in a kid's life where they can process that. And I think part of that process is being introduced to it over time, not we're going hunting and here, pull the trigger.
Yeah, for sure.
Just going along with people, checking out organizations like Pheasants Forever, like the Aldo Leopold Foundation, learning about conservation. I think those are great places to start. Talking to people, like kids, you hear those conversations or start those conversations. Anybody go hunting? When you're out on the playground or you're just having a thing. Does anybody do this? Or you see the kid with camo on, talk to them about it. And if you're older, I think that you have incredible opportunity, again, through the DNR websites, and that some of these are particularly focused. And we've done a couple on the farm where we just featured bringing someone in and doing that kind of thing. And then be sure that you're ready to contribute to conservation and ask yourself, well, what am I doing in exchange for this? Because it is an exchange. Mm-hmm. So
out of the Sharing the Land resumes that you have on file, how many are complete novices where you have to kind of start at ground zero?
Wow. I would say probably about 25%.
Okay.
And what I personally like to do is kind of have a mix of people. And right now, I really need to add a couple of people, and I do have a bunch of resumes to go through, but add a couple people to the hunting thing. But and here's the opportunity that I have, as opposed to, like, I have a couple of people who are I don't know what you would call them, like gold star cooperators. They'll do anything for me, and then they also have pretty much full access to the property, as opposed to. Here's a great example. I need to harvest antlerless deer on my property. And when people go, well, I'm happy to come out and help with something for that opportunity. I'm like, well, if I invite you out, your contribution to conservation is to harvest that antlerless deer and to take a good, clean, ethical shot, field dress it, bring it down, get it tested for CWD, take care of it from there. Sometimes we have a little program going on like that, but for the most part, you gotta be ready to do that yourself. I'm not going to do it for you, and only to a certain degree you're going to be taught. So if you're at a point where you're able to do that, then cool. And people ask me, well, where did I learn about field dressing a deer? You got a phone in your pocket? I mean, where do I learn to cut one up? Well, you got a phone in your pocket? I mean, I still do it that way, because there's just different ways of butchering.
And you got to take out the knife and cut open the belly. Your first one is going to suck. You're going to hit the guts, and it's not going to smell nice.
Yeah, but it's all part of it, as my dad used to say, right? I mean, all of this is a part of it, right? And I think that if I was going to sum this up, like, embracing all of it is really it. If I think you'll find that if you are doing it. I had a friend of mine say this to me one time about some work that I was doing. He goes, well, why are you doing it? And it was an opportunity that I had. And I was like, well, I want to be a part of it, but I also don't want to be a fool, because there's money involved, right? I don't want to be foolish and say I'm not not worried about the money because there's money involved. His response is, well, if what you want out of it, most importantly, is money, that's what you'll get. So I ended up doing a bunch of, I was like, oh, well, I want to be a part of this. So I'm going to go into it with that attitude that I want to be, and the money happened, you know, I didn't worry about it, and it happened. It's sort of like, how many different analogies can we use here? But it was sort of like when I was a high school basketball coach. When I took over, we sucked. I mean, I don't know how else to say it. They weren't very good. But we worked at focusing on improving, being better teammates, working hard, and the rest of it would take care of itself. And it did. I mean, if those are the things that you focus on, as opposed to, I'm going to be heartbroken if we don't beat this team that we have no business beating, well, you're going to be heartbroken a lot, as opposed to, we're getting better, we're working hard at it, we're good teammates, sportsmanship or whatever, you know, is also involved. And those are the the rest of it comes. It's so as you go through that process, the end result will come or not, but you also, part of it is learning how to accept what happened.
Yeah. Well, I love what you're doing. I think it's really cool. I think it's novel, at least for the current times, you know, kind of borrowing from the Riley Cooperative and turning it into something that is sustainable and will live on after Doug Duren's heart no longer beats.
Yeah. Well, I think it's not ours, it's just our turn, right? It kind of goes back to that. I really want to thank you for having me on to talk about this stuff, because in our pre-talk and then during this one, just thinking about it all differently, right? I mean, I was like, why do I want to go and do this thing? And I mean, other than it's always fun to sit and chat with you, but it's also thinking about it differently, coming at subjects, you know, with a different, which then allows for a wider view as you go forward. So Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome, Doug. Thanks for coming.
All right.